Proud moments. Melvin Joe is a Navajo Indian. As a child, he could not speak to be understood. Now, he sings. As a child, Melvin could not see clearly enough to recognize and distinguish forms. Now he helps his family attend to their chickens and tan the hides of sheep. Virginia Reed weighed 2 pounds, 8 ounces at birth. Her frail frame and fragile brain suffered from the damages of fetal alcoholism. She had little chance of surviving. Now, with boundless energy and spirit, she spends each day learning and playing and finding life beyond her limitations. The pride of such accomplishments happens every moment at St. Michael's School for Special Navajo Children. It all began over 20 years ago when a crippled Navajo boy learned to stand on his own strength. With him, so did the Navajo people rise to stand on their own strengths, to build a center that serves special Navajo children from infancy through adolescence. Such service did not exist on the reservation of 185,000 Navajo people, and to this day, conclusive studies are not available on the incidence of handicapped children among the Navajos. With a growing enrollment of 130 students, St. Michael's reveals the spirit of the Navajo way and more. St. Michael's reveals the struggle we all share to sustain traditional beliefs and to nurture the roots of our humanity in an ever-changing world. This is the proud moment of St. Michael's that unfolds in a remarkable story of a Franciscan sister, Mary Jane Ryan, and a Navajo woman, Velma Spencer. They met here on the rugged reservation in the shadow of Window Rock, Arizona. Here their lives converged and rose above cultural differences that so often handicap the human spirit. In their care for children, they have achieved a rare blending of traditional Navajo and Western white Anglo ways of healing. Here, even when there is no hope for cure, the spirit of harmony makes people whole again. In 1967, Sister Mary Jane Ryan, a Boston Irish Catholic Franciscan nurse, took her first breath of Navajo air and life. She did not come to this dusty mission clinic from Kennedy Memorial Hospital in Boston to bring modern medicine to Navajo land, nor had she come to stay.
In 1967, one of our sisters had terminal cancer, and they really didn't have enough help or staff here to care for her. So I came on temporary assignment to take care of her in her last hours. Well, Sister Gregory was also a nurse, and we had a clinic out in the back of the mission. And so my responsibility, besides taking care of Sister Gregory, was to phase out that clinic. And so one day, this Navajo family brought this little boy, and he had impetigo all over his face.
The story of Alvin, Mary Jane's first student, is the story of many who have since followed her healing way.
Lifted him and carried him into the clinic. So I became really very interested in him. He had polio when he was a year old. And of course, the Salk vaccine had been out when I did my training, so I had really not seen an untreated polio patient. So I became very interested and did a muscle exam, and really did feel that he had enough good muscles that he could, with exercises and some therapy, be trained to walk. And so I started working with him every day. When I was working with Alvin, an old Navajo medicine man used to come down and sit and watch me. Now Alvin used to try and teach me Navajo, and I used to try and use these Navajo words with the medicine man, and nothing. I didn't get any change of expression. And the day I did stand Alvin up, the medicine man got all excited and went home in his horse and wagon, and that afternoon came back and had his 3-year-old grandson who had cerebral palsy. And Alvin's mom, who came to see him standing up, went back to work, and he was actually then starting to walk. And his mom said to her supervisor, there's a sister up at St. Michael's who has my son now walking. And she got all excited and called me that afternoon and said that she had a 3-year-old granddaughter, and could I at least take a look at her, that she couldn't sit and she couldn't hold her head up. And that was Rhonda. And so the next day they brought Rhonda, and within 3 weeks I had 15 children at the clinic.
Rhonda is now in college. She and Mary Jane met at the first clinic and looked back at those early days.
Well, I remember Winnie, the dog, when she was here, and all the kids used to be afraid of her until they got to know her, and she was always around, and the kids were always petting her and everything.
And one look at Winnie made you feel really good about yourself, huh?
Yeah.
Now, Rhonda, that you've been to the public school, you graduated from junior high and high school, and now you're in college. When you look back, what has been the most difficult thing to deal with in terms of your disability?
I think the most difficult thing is just to see people's reactions to just my being disabled. I mean, they sort of ignore me. If I'm passing them on the sidewalk or something, they look away like I'm not even there because they don't know how to act. They don't exactly know what to say or if they should say anything. So they just look away and pretend that I'm not there.
And how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel bad because, you know, I think that once they got to know me, they'd realize that they wouldn't have to turn away every time they saw a disabled person.
And you have lots of friends to prove that to yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And my friends don't treat me as if I'm disabled. They treat me like anybody else.
And how do you view yourself?
I don't view myself as being disabled. I think that for me, people who think I'm disabled, they're the ones with the disability, not me. Because they don't realize, you know, what it's like. And they tend to ignore a lot of things and take a lot of things for granted, you know. But I don't feel as I have a disability. I can do just about anything anybody else can do. I might do it a little different, or it might take me a little bit longer, but I get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Navajo parents did not bring their children to Mary Jane without some well-founded fear. In the past, when they sought help from public health or the Bureau of Indian Affairs, their children were sent away to distant cities with little chance of seeing them again. Parents wondered if Mary Jane, too, would send their children away. They also wondered about Mary Jane's way of healing. Murray Lincoln, former Chief Justice of the Navajo Nation, was among those who observed Mary Jane. Later, he became one of the original members of St. Michael's Board of Directors.
First, when I look somebody like her, then I think, is this real, or is this something that sort of, so to speak, that this is like frosty? Then inside it's not. So that's the first impression I generally used to get when I meet people from different races like that. That's the first thing that hit me.
It's nice to see you.
And then I'm wondering, is this person, by doing so, gonna con? Is it conning me in its own shrewdness? That's what goes through with me. I said to myself, here's a woman who was not thinking about the color of her skin and the color of the child and the custom or whatever concept. This child was being born and then hers. This was no obstacle. It was not an obstacle. It was an open thing. That's what I saw. And that meant something to me. Hey, if we all have that, we wouldn't look down on each other.
From the beginning, Mary Jane incorporated the Navajo way of healing with her own medical practices. Navajo families often invited Mary Jane to share in their sacred rituals, though filming them is not allowed.
In most of the early children that we had in the school, I would explain to the parents from my perception, from my medical training, what the diagnosis of the child was. But the Navajos each had their own diagnosis for their child. And they understood, I think, from very early on, just in the fact that I asked them, that I respected that. And that for them, that was as valid as the medical diagnosis, and that the treatment now was something that we had to. And I would recommend a medicine man if I sensed that there was any kind of discomfort. And often the children in the early program, when they would have a medicine man or a ceremony, the parents would always invite me to come. And usually the medicine man treated me as a professional peer and would explain always why he was doing what he was doing. And then I would also explain to him why I would do what I was doing with the child. And it was just a feeling of comfort and respect. I really respected them, and I think they sensed that. And I sensed very much their respect for me.
For a full year, Mary Jane worked alone. As word of her work spread, the number of children grew from 15 to over 50. On weekends, she worked at the public health hospital in Fort Defiance to support her work with the Navajo children. She also received support from her religious community and her family. After 3 years, she applied for her first grant from the Office of Indian Equal Opportunity in Washington. By that time, Mary Jane was caring for 70 children with the help of Navajo parents. That summer, in 1970, Mary Jane had arranged for 2 professional special education teachers to come, but she had no funding and little evidence that she would be able to pay them.
When they came, I don't know what their expectation was. I think they thought they were going to be volunteers. I had hoped that I was going to be able to pay them, but money was really never mentioned to them. It was mentioned very often in my prayers. And I walked into the dining room one day and I heard Arletta and Mary talking. Did Sister mention anything about pay? And I quickly exited because I, at that moment, didn't have any more inclination of where I was going to get the money from. And the next day, I got word from Washington that I got funded, and so we had a big celebration that they were, after all, going to have a paycheck.
Arletta Hartman, one of Mary Jane's first teachers, still teaches at St. Michael's.
Eldon, would you like to come back to the sentences later, and let's do the first word up there, the ED words, and see if you can sound them out for me? You're so good at sounding out words. Why don't you give it a try?
As the number of children grew, so did their need for more space.
The program really expanded based on the children's needs, whatever a child needed. if a child needed speech therapy, then we really worked at getting a speech therapist to come to be on our staff, and physical therapy, occupational therapy, and more classrooms. At that point, my dream for the children was that I would just get them ready, and it just became like Topsy. I was just going to be a short while and eventually be able to get them into the public schools, to the bureau schools. And it was pretty limited. And as the children's needs grew, and as the community was not going to be able to pick up on those needs, and then with our own incorporation, which was with parents and interested community people, I knew my dream would be long-term, and I did dream then of a center that would be multidisciplinary, that would really meet the needs of the students.
So has St. Michael's continued to expand based on the needs of the students and on Sister Mary Jane's dedication to the Navajo people. From the beginning, St. Michael's belonged to the people. When the school was incorporated, Navajo parents served as the governing board of directors. At first, professionally qualified staff had to be brought in from the outside, but soon the Navajo people themselves began to get special training and certification. Often they began as volunteers. That is how Velma Spencer started at St. Michael's, as a high school member of the Navajo Neighborhood Youth Corps. Velma worked first in the census office of the Franciscan Friars.
When I used to work over in the census office, I would look over and I would see Sister Mary Jane, with the kids in the yard, and I always wondered, what her conversation was, with the children. And so one day I just kind of wandered over there. Didn't really introduce myself. I guess I was a little bit afraid, and I just kind of observed, the children there. Didn't really ask any questions. I was just, an observer. And so just watching that and, just the interaction between, the staff, and I'm sure some of them were parents that were there. It just really interested me.
You've always been a good cheer in Virginia.
While still in high school, Velma volunteered to work in the office for Mary Jane. She then went to college at Arizona State University in Tempe. There she started to pursue a career in accounting. During vacation breaks, she returned to her volunteer office work at St. Michael's. However, Mary Jane found her so often outside with the children that she asked Velma if she would take a course in special education to see how she liked it.
So I did. I went back down and I took a course in special ed. The next semester I changed my major and graduated with certification in the area of special education. And then I came back and I started teaching with Mary Jane as a special ed teacher in 1975. One little kid I remember so specially, and she's gone now, but her name was Joy. She was a little Down syndrome girl. And she was one of my first students when I started teaching there, but when I first got to know her, she was an infant. She just really fascinated me. She didn't really have a lot of language at that time, but Joy, I think, was a big part of my decision in wanting to go into special ed. But it really sensitized me, I think, to handicapped children. Just the love that they showed, just their spirit, their happiness. They would cry, but yet, they would be sad, but yet that was just temporary. The whole time they were there, you could just see that, that closeness of the family that, that St. Michael's really, I think, brings out even to this day.
Velma taught for 5 years, then became principal of the school. Soon her natural administrative skills led her to become Sister Mary Jane's assistant director. Then, in 1982, Mary Jane decided the time had come to leave. With Mary Jane's recommendation, the board appointed Velma director of St. Michael's.
And she had virtually worked in every aspect of the program, and essentially was a much better administrator than I was. She's a Navajo woman who is very steeped in the traditions of her culture, in the spirit of her culture. She's very well educated, has her master's in special education, and she has a wonderful way of bridging, of linking the best of her education and the very best that her culture has. She has a wonderful sensitivity to her people and a tremendous love for the program and the children.
Traditional Navajo people have always believed the woman's place is in the home. There, the woman could best fill her role as leader in the Navajo maternal society. Velma brought to St. Michael's a new vision of woman's role, inherited from her grandfather and her father.
I'm the youngest of 4 sisters, and my dad, out of his family, was the only one who got educated, who went to school, went to high school, went into the service, and came back and, you know, got a job with the El Paso Natural Gas Company. And my grandfather would always come during the summers, and he would visit us. And he was the one who always told us that he never really thought that, you know, a woman's place was in the school. But times are changing, he used to tell us. And you got to be out there when the times change. I think it was my father, you know, seeing what my father was able to do, to hold a job, to make money, to have a family, and be successful, but yet at the same time never lose his roots with where he was brought up. And so he would say, you know, I strongly believe that you all each ought to go on to school, you know, not just to high school. You know, I hear so much now, you know, with the radio, and people talk about higher education, and, you know, go for it. And you're always a leader. That's how the Navajo people always view Navajo women. And he says you'll reach frustration points. But, you know, just remember, you know, your native beliefs, your culture, your language. And my grandfather was a medicine man. And he used to say, whenever you feel, I guess, like you've hit rock bottom, everyone would feel that, but yet you know, somehow you're always lifted. You know, there's always the Great Spirit that you can always go back to, you know, the holy ones. So, you know, to go back to having your native healing ceremonies.
With Velma's appointment as director, the original vision of Mary Jane and the board continued to unfold, to build an accredited, multidisciplinary special education center administered and staffed by the Navajo people.
It was real hard when she came that one day, and she shared with me and said that she says, it's my time to go. And I knew what she meant, because she had told me all along that this is what she was going to do, but I guess I didn't want to hear it, but I knew what she meant. And I always supported her, because I knew wherever Mary Jane went, she would always come back to St. Michael's.
Mary Jane went to Los Angeles to work with high-risk infants, but she does return often to help design new programs and to train staff members. She left St. Michael's in good hands.
When people look at administration, they more or less look at 4 of us. That would be myself as the director, and Eugene Thompson, who is the assistant director. Grace Manali is our school principal, and Jim Connor is our assistant principal. And each of us started at St. Michael's as teachers.
Consider the administrative task at St. Michael's. 130 special students, over 90 employees and volunteers, an annual budget of over $1.5 million, funded by federal, state, tribal, and private sources. The school runs 12 months, no summers off. Many students have multiple physical and mental handicaps. Each student requires individualized academic and physical development programs. St. Michael's is like a small college campus where students can both study and live. Many of the academic buildings and all of the group resident homes reflect the design of the traditional Navajo structure, the hogan. In Navajo culture, the hogan is a dwelling place that also occupies a place in the sacred world. The hogan's round shape is symbolic of the sun and considered a gift of the spirit. St. Michael's campus is such a gift, a sacred place of healing. Just as the Navajo family may have a cluster of hogans for different purposes, so does St. Michael's incorporate a cluster of classroom hogans to serve a wide range of needs. The first of these is the sensory stimulation classroom for infants and very young children. Emphasis is on early prevention of what could become later and greater difficulties. Developing the use of one's physical senses is basic to all learning. Various stimulations help children interact with their environment.
Find the teddy bear. Where's the teddy bear? Can you get it? Get him. Use both arms.
Edmund is blind. He is learning to see with his sense of touch.
Keep touching your rope, Sarah. Follow your rope, touch your rope. Keep going. Touch your rope, touch your rope. Atta boy, good boy, keep touching your rope. That's a good boy. Keep going.
The light room serves to stimulate visual awareness of a child whose sight is severely limited. Ideas for developing sensory perceptions come from the staff's own creativity and from regular in-service workshops. Young children in the sensory stimulation classroom also learn to use both small and large muscles to develop basic motor skills.
Here we go. You gonna help me?
As children are able, they learn to use such motor skills to take care of themselves. As children progress, they move on to the preschool program. It is based on Montessori's approach of letting the children choose their own work with the guidance of the teacher.
Good boy, Edmund.
Proud moments. Children at this age and stage of development learn through imitation. So the preschool program includes children without handicaps to serve as models. Such modeling encourages children with handicaps to learn patterns of behavior and develop greater cognitive abilities and motor skills. As a consultant, Sister Mary Jane helps the staff learn to work with model children as teaching assistants.
You do that with her, all right? And I'm going to watch you from a distance. That's mainly what I'm trying to do, is observe the children that are being mainstreamed, to make sure that they are getting interchanges with other children.
In the primary classroom, the children are classified as educable mentally handicapped, but such restrictive categories do not inhibit efforts to reach beyond a child's classified limitations. The goal at St. Michael's is always to help students reach full potential. Grace Benally, principal.
In this classroom, there is a potential for mainstreaming into a regular classroom setting, which would be close to where they would be living. Valerie and Virginia are working with Tony in the math area, working on numbers. So the primary curriculum would be some functional academics, but some of your basic curriculum, like your first and second grade levels, and some pre-readiness skills also.
Another primary classroom serves students from 5 to 9 years old who are highly trainable. The main goal here is to help children take care of themselves. This includes learning basic domestic skills. Practical academics are also a basic part of the curriculum: counting, sorting, identifying colors and shapes, and verbal communications.
What's our number? 4. 4. Good, Loretta. What's in
Proud moments.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, what do we have up here? What shape?
Perhaps some of the proudest moments happen in the classroom for students with several handicaps. Kevin Kroner is helping Daryl learn an arm movement that will enable Daryl to feed himself. Then he can enjoy eating at a pace he chooses. Daryl is both blind and has cerebral palsy. His favorite pastime is listening to Navajo music. So Kevin made a switching device that turns music on when Daryl moves his hand toward his mouth.
Good man. Is your favorite Navajo tape, Daryl? Come on, Daryl. Oh, Daryl, come on. There you go. Good, Daryl. Good man. Keep working on it.
Daryl's determination and patience is unmatched by even the most decorated Olympian. He is a fast learner, Kevin observes. Daryl, he says, will probably have this arm movement down in about a year. Proud moments still to come. Teachers keep a daily diary on each child to serve as a link with parents and to exchange information that the students themselves are not able to communicate. Grace Benally.
In these notebooks, what the parents or group home parents are asked to do is to give an update of what the child did from the time they got home, what kind of food that they ate, daily liquid intake. Those are very important, especially with our multi-handicapped children whose priority in our program is the medical area.
To lift one's arm. To hold up one's head. Are achievements that challenge both body and spirit. Here, small gains are measured only over long stretches of time.
Good morning, my name is Eldon. I am 18 years old.
Eldon is our elder statesman in our classroom. He's 18. I had him in our preschool when he first came when he was 2 years old. Eldon has cerebral palsy, the spastic type. So Eldon first had to learn how to use his pointing finger, and that's when we realized he had cognitive abilities and was capable to do academics, when he could let us know by pointing that he understood and wanted to be understood. He was about 2 years old when he started, 3, when he started pointing to things. And I can remember he's also wanted mobility, and he now has an electric wheelchair, but when he started out as a 2-year-old, his mobility was on a little scooter board. So mobility means a lot to him, but communication even means more. And so his previous teacher, Pauline Boiselle, in the classroom, arranged to have him get a, it's called a phonic ear. This is a voice 140. They come in a series. And Eldon is very good at memorizing all these numbers. He has memorized over 600 codes, and this is his main means of communicating.
Some of us like to play.
Very good. That was nice and clear. Now, Eldon communicates at home with this, and this was a real breakthrough, wasn't it, Eldon, at home? Now when he gets mad at his little brothers and sisters, he can tell them on his machine, he can play games at home, and it's really nice that he can communicate with many, many people now.
Here in the classroom for physically challenged, Eldon has had many proud moments, but he was more pleased by a visit from Rhonda, an old schoolmate, than with his heroic achievement. Edra Chase is another of Arletta's students. Like Eldon, Edra is skilled with the voice machine.
Good morning, my name is Edra Chase. I live in Fort Defiance. I go to at St. Michael's Association for Special Education.
Edra is also learning to print by hand and to use a typewriter.
We are trying to improve her sentence structure and her communication by speaking in full sentences. So she's learning about periods and commas and plurals and all the things that go into expressing oneself.
Proud moments.
And I'm going to peek at your last sentence from this morning. I like hot tea on cold days. Very good, Edra. I like that last one best of all.
Next year, Edra will go into St. Michael's pre-vocational program for students aged 15 to 22 years. Here at the intermediate pre-vocational level, Students learn basic work skills and behavior, getting to work on time, following a schedule, communicating with supervisors.
Good, Joe. Now a red one.
Good work. Good work.
Red one.
As students advance to the vocational school program, they have a wide range of occupational choices. Jim Connor, assistant principal.
We have a large emphasis on horticulture and agriculture here. We have a greenhouse program with 2 solar greenhouses and an outdoor garden during the summer. So the students learn a lot of horticulture skills with house plants and with vegetables and other native plants that we grow here too.
Navajo Tony Somali teaches the students how to mix soil, do cuttings, transplanting, and repotting plants. The students use only organic fertilizers, no toxic chemicals. Each vocational program is run as a business. Flowers and plants are raised from seed or shoots. Then they are potted and sold to local stores. The income helps to support both the students and the learning programs. Jim Connor.
We have a landscaping program that works with a lot of conjunction with the greenhouse program. And they do commercial landscaping in the area, transplanting, replanting native trees and plants, as well as commercial landscape plants. And they do lawn work and other types of landscaping skills.
A geodesic dome houses the woodworking and agriculture programs. Much-needed larger facilities are soon to come. Here students learn the complete care of livestock from breeding through butchering. They attend to about 12 sheep and 24 cattle. Soon, poultry raising will be added. Each student follows a checklist of chores: stock feeding and watering, stock pen cleanup, fence repairs. Each chore is broken down into routine steps. Proud moments. Proud moments abound. In 1 year, 5 students won blue ribbons in 4-H competition. After the prize-winning animals were auctioned off, the buyers donated them back to St. Michael's. Long-range plans are to provide meat for the entire school. Livestock is a primary source of income for Navajo families. Learning these skills helps students contribute to family livelihood and share in traditional Navajo life. This is the Navajo way of living in harmony with nature. Sheep provide wool to be woven into blankets and clothing. Animal hides provide leather to be crafted into purses, coats, or shoes. Each creation reveals who they are. Each enriches in them the pride and the spirit of being Navajo. The students have a chance to share in all programs. Then they can choose the vocation that best suits their individual talents and interests. The goal is to help students share in their families' lives and if possible, hold a job. Proud moments. Johnson Key was hired by the post office as a maintenance worker. However, finding work on the reservation is difficult, not for lack of skills, but for lack of jobs. Unemployment cripples the entire Navajo people. By some estimates, over 40% are without work. In addition to his post office job, Johnson also supports himself as a skilled potter. Jim Connor.
He's produced dinnerware sets and special requests from individuals, and he's also selling a lot of his wares now through a company out of California that we contract with, and we send the pottery out to them several times a year, and then they sell his pottery from there. So he's doing very well.
Proud moments. Few centers, even in populated urban areas, provide such a wide range of services. That is the challenge of serving the Navajo people, isolated on the reservation. At the end of each school day, about 50 students return home. However, about 80 students live in remote parts of the reservation. They stay through the week in group homes on or near the campus. About 7 children live in each home, family style. 1 or 2 adults serve as parents. The goal is to teach independent living in an intimate, caring environment. Sister Mary Jane started the first group home in the early 1970s.
I lived with 8 children. Mine was more or less the intake group home. When a new child would usually come to my group home. And we try and have them mixed so that they can help each other. Like if there's a severely handicapped child in that group home, then hopefully there are children in that group home that can be very helpful to that child. And also helpful in taking care of their own environment.
Proud moments. Before St. Michael's existed, parents faced a dilemma. They could keep their children at home without the help they needed, or they could get professional services at distant institutions and be separated from their children for months. At St. Michael's, all students return home every weekend. The bus runs are long, some take 9 hours. Velma Spencer.
It's a lot of wear and tear on our buses, but it certainly is worth it to get the home contact there with the families. The kids go home every Friday around 2 o'clock, and the buses go out again on Sunday and pick up the kids. And it's just not the teaching staff that we require that they ride the buses as chaperones. We as administrators also do that.
What's that word, Belle? Sad. What's that?
Happy. And it's not just the administrators. You know, we have our nursing people do it. We have our kitchen staff going on the bus runs, and it's been really good. I mean, it's a way to get to know the family, keep in contact with the family.
You want your sandwich?
Regular communications with families is a high priority. Jean Thompson, assistant director.
And when we do home visits, we always get feedback from parents also saying, they express to us some of the problems that they are having at home, maybe with their child, or they want more information, or they want more help in how to handle or feed, or how they can help at home, and how the siblings and the extended family members can help.
Valerie's and Virginia's family, the Bahis, live here in this earth-covered hogan. The Bahis adopted Valerie and Virginia. Their natural mother is Mrs. Bahi's niece, Mrs. Bahi.
It was my niece herself who had approached me when the girls were still infants and had asked for our help. And at that time, she had told us that due to personal matters beyond her control, that she really felt like she wasn't capable at that time, and that she wanted myself to care for her two girls.
Supporting troubled relatives is typical of Navajo clans. Including Valerie and Virginia, the Bahis share this simple hogan with 14 children and grandchildren. Mr. Bahi.
I also would like to have a house for both Valerie and Virginia, but I guess the thing that would really make it so special would be that I would like to build this house for them. And I guess when I do this, I would really like for people to think that, I helped my children in some way.
The Bahis have enjoyed many proud moments with Valerie and Virginia.
2 weeks ago, my husband and I attended a staffing at St. Michael's. And at that time, we met with the teaching staff to review the individual educational program that was implemented for the two girls for this school year. The recommendation for Virginia at the staffing was that she remain at St. Michael's for another year. The recommendation for Valerie was that she be mainstreamed back into the regular school system.
Like the cat.
Proud moments. The family of Melvin Joe also reflects the Navajo clan spirit. Mr. and Mrs. Joe could not have children themselves, yet they have raised a family of 13 children. All are adopted. Most came from Mrs. Joe's sisters who fell on hard times. Melvin was not from a family member. Mrs. Joe.
Shortly before Melvin was born, his father had been herding sheep and accidentally fell and was killed from a gunshot wound. Several weeks after his father's death, Melvin was born. And after he was born, for the next 3 months, Melvin's mother had a very difficult time accepting Melvin, and had come to me and had said that she really felt like Melvin was different and that she didn't know if she could raise him. And so at that time, I took it upon myself to make that decision that I would take him in and that he would become one of my children.
The Joes have taught their children to value modern Anglo education. Several of their children have graduated from college and are raising families in cities off the reservation. The Joes also value traditional Navajo ways. Mrs. Joe is a Navajo medicine woman.
And looking at today's society, how progressively we're moving, I have had to learn to accept that we have to understand that the Western medicine versus even the native healing, those things have to complement one another. As far as Melvin is concerned, I believe, and I will continue to teach Melvin to live in both cultures, both the Navajo and the the Anglo way of life, because I think both have helped him tremendously.
Actually, what I need to do is get the names.
While closely tied to traditional Navajo values, St. Michael's has worked in partnership with universities and resource centers throughout the country. The universities of Arizona, Minnesota, Richmond in Virginia, as well as paraprofessional training programs in Nebraska and New York City.
I guess in some way or another they have found out about St. Michael's and the uniqueness of St. Michael's being located on an Indian reservation and also being located in a rural and isolated place. I think for St. Michael's, we just offer so many programs for such a small school that's located in such a rural place. We have seen some of the programs in the urban areas and big cities, and they do offer good programs, but a lot of times also they're lacking in certain areas, especially in vocational programming and a lot of culturally relevant programs that might just not be there.
We also work very closely with the Genetic Center out of Scottsdale. They've been really good in providing genetic counseling and doing evaluations on our children. And hopefully what we'd like to do as a part of this demonstration grant or project would be to serve as a replicable model for other Native American special ed facilities in the United States.
The desire for professionalism at St. Michael's is not status-seeking or self-serving. The children always come first. More classrooms, residences, and a gym are top priorities. Although administration buildings look like temporary construction worker sheds, they are not a priority.
Because we don't consider ourselves a priority in terms of building space. One can come to St. Michael's and see that we utilize every inch of space here for the kids. We'd love to have a gymnasium for our kids for Special Olympics. The training program, because it's a year-round training program that we have for the children. But right now they use the cafeteria, and it's really hard. The classrooms that we did have built were built by our own staff, of our bus drivers, our landscaping staff. We went out and did a proposal to the Forest Products Company here on Navajo, and they donated some logs, and we had our own staff build the classrooms.
The joy of giving fills the air at St. Michael's. Hundreds of volunteers have served here for summers and for entire years. Those who come from off the reservation, such as the Philadelphia Mercy Corps, receive room and board. Others, such as the Navajo foster grandparents, donate their time, wealth of experience, and wisdom. One grandparent hitchhikes 80 miles each way every day, another 50 miles. Such respect for human life is deep-rooted in the Navajo tradition. In the Navajo way, to help one person is to serve the whole nation.
No, you can't bounce until you make the sound. Ba 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 ba. Make the sound again. I'll let you do it. Say it. Ba 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 ba. Good. That was good enough. That was close enough. You make that sound?
The blending of professional and personal care at St. Michael's creates a rare climate.
I don't think I've ever taken anyone on a tour of the school that when they left didn't say that they could just feel an overpowering love at the school. And they could just feel it everywhere.
You get St. Michael's in your veins, and it's hard. I mean, you become attached.
It's hard work. You learn to measure things in very small increments of the school, but you also learn to celebrate a lot. Just the joy, like there's just no feeling in the world when a child takes their first step. I mean, that child feels really good, and you feel suddenly 6 feet taller, and just, everything is worthwhile. And when they say their first words and become just a little bit more independent, we sort of somehow, it's a celebration of the heart.
A celebration of the heart. That is the glory of every proud moment at St. Michael's. A celebration of communicating with the hidden spirit released from broken minds and bodies. The celebration of finding that harmony within our humanity that makes us all whole again.
How about a hug? Yes, you know I always come back and see you. So I'll be back, all right? You have to go home to Mama Bahi, and I have to go to California, okay? And I'm gonna follow over. Okay, Valley, I want to give you a hug too. Okay? I'll see you later, okay?
I want to take a walk.
Okay, when I come back, I'll take another walk, all right? I love you. Bye-bye.
Proud moments.
We see you.
Ado penelchi eila, digen kotara yenichi eila, neja teya neya, neja nejola neya, neja teya neya, neja ala hoteya tanga ite katneti ta akowat eila, neja teya neya. Niyawa ato nehonet eila ta akowat ego ahwal awa tola neja teya neya niyawa nejala neya neja teya neya niyawa hey neya nejala neya neja teya neya niyawati depeya hojogo kahadati eina tiyen ayo at eya nishitcha eina ado lapiya eila ado penelchi eina tiyen